family. Welcome to this beautiful Sunday afternoon. My name is Cynthia with Cynthia's Joyful Creations, and I am excited to be here in the joyful house with you for Once Upon a Storybook as we continue reading the Anne of Green Gables series. We are in the third book of the series, Anne of the Island, and today we're going to be reading Chapter 13, The Way of the Transgressors, and Chapter 14, The Summons. All right, if you will, sit back, relax, grab a project, and let's let our story for today begin. Chapter 13, The Way of Transgressors. Davy and Dora were ready for Sunday school. They were going alone, which did not often happen, for Miss Lind always attended Sunday school. But Miss Lind had twisted her ankle and was lame, so she was staying home this morning. The twins were also to represent the family at church, for Anne had gone away the evening before to spend Sunday with the friends in Cromarty, and Marilla had one of her bad headaches. Davy came downstairs slowly. Dora was waiting in the hall for him, having been made ready by Mrs. Lind. Davy had attended to his own preparations. He had a cent in his pocket for the Sunday school collection and a 5-cent piece for the church collection. He carried his Bible in one hand and his Sunday school quarterly in the other. He knew his lesson and his golden text and his catechism question perfectly. Had he not studied them, perforce, in Mrs. Lind's kitchen all last Sunday afternoon? Davy therefore should have been in a placid frame of mind. As a matter of fact, despite text and catechism, he was inwardly as a ravening wolf. Miss Lind limped out of her kitchen as he joined Dora. "Are you clean?" she demanded severely. "Yes, all of me that shows," Davy answered with a defiant scowl. Miss Rachel sighed. She had her suspicions about Davy's neck and ears, but she knew that if she attempted to make a personal examination, Davy would likely take to his heels, and she could not pursue him today. "Well, be sure you behave yourself," she warned them. "Don't walk in the dust. Don't stop in the porch to talk to the other children. Don't squirm or wriggle in your places. Don't forget the golden text. Don't lose your collection or forget to put it in. Don't whisper at prayer time, and don't forget to pay attention to the sermon." Davy deigned no response. He marched away down the lane, followed by the meek Dora. But his soul seethed within him. Davy had suffered, or thought he had suffered, many things at the hands and tongues of Miss Rachel Lind since she had come to Green Gables, for Miss Lind could not live with anybody, whether they were 9 or 90, without trying to bring them up properly. And it was only the preceding afternoon that she had interfered to influence Marilla against allowing Davy to go fishing with the Timothy Cottons. Davy was still boiling over this. As soon as he was out of the lane, Davy stopped and twisted his countenance into such an unearthly and terrific contortion that Dora, although she knew his gifts in that respect, was honestly alarmed lest he should never in the world be able to get it straightened out again. "Darn her!" exploded Davy. "Oh, Davy, don't swear," gasped Dora in dismay. "Darn is not swearing, not real swearing." "And I don't care if it is," retorted Davy recklessly. "Well, if you must say dreadful words, don't say them on Sunday," pleaded Dora. Davy was as yet far from repentance, but in his secret soul he felt that perhaps he had gone a little too far. "I'm going to invent a swear word of my own," he declared. "God will punish you if you do," said Dora solemnly. "Then I think God is a mean old scamp," retorted Davy. "Doesn't he know a fella must have some way of 'spressing his feelings?" "Davy," said Dora. She expected that Davy would be struck down dead on the spot. But nothing happened. "Anyway, I ain't going to stand any more of Miss Lind's bossing," sputtered Davy. "Anne and Marilla may have the right to boss me, but she hasn't. I'm going to do every single thing she told me not to do. You watch me." In grim, deliberate silence, while Dora watched him with the fascination of horror, Davy stepped off the green grass of the roadside, ankle deep in the fine dust which 4 weeks of rainless weather had made on the road, and marched along in it, shuffling his feet viciously until he was enveloped in a hazy cloud. "That's the beginning," he announced triumphantly. "And I'm going to stop in the porch and talk as long as if there's anybody there to talk to. I'm going to squirm and wriggle and whisper, and I'm going to say I don't know the golden text, and I'm going to throw away both of my collections right now." And Davy hurled cent and nickel over Mr. Barry's fence with fierce delight. "Satan made you do that," said Dora reproachfully. "He didn't," cried Davy indignantly. "I just thought it out for myself, and I've thought of something else. I'm not going to Sunday school or church at all. I'm going up to play with the Cottons. They told me yesterday they weren't going to Sunday school today because their mother was away and there was nobody to make them. Come along, Dora. We'll have a great time." "I don't want to go," protested Dora. "You've got to," said Davy. "If you don't come, I'll tell Marilla that Frank Bell kissed you in school last Monday." "I couldn't help it. I didn't know he was going to," cried Dora, blushing scarlet. "Well, you didn't slap him or seem a bit cross," retorted Davy. "I'll tell her that, too, if you don't come. We'll take the shortcut up this field." "I'm afraid of those cows," protested poor Dora, seeing a prospect of escape. "The very idea of you being scared of those cows," scoffed Davy. "Why, they're both younger than you." "They're bigger," said Dora. "They won't hurt you. Come along now. This is great. When I grow up, I ain't going to bother going to church at all. I believe I can get to heaven by myself." "You'll go to the other place if you break the Sabbath day," said unhappy Dora, following him sorely against her will. But Davy was not scared. Yet. Hell was very far off, and the delights of a fishing expedition with the Cottons was very near. He wished Dora had more spunk. She kept looking back as if she were going to cry every minute, and that spoiled a fellow's fun. Hang girls anyway, Davy did not say darn this time. Even in thought, he was not sorry, yet, that he had said it once, but it might as well be not to tempt the unknown powers too far in one day. The small Cottons were playing in their backyard and hailed Davy's appearance with whoops of delight. Pete, Tommy, Adolphus, and Mirabel Cotton were all alone. Their mother and other sisters were away. Dora was thankful Mirabel was there, at least. She'd been afraid she'd be alone in a crowd of boys. Mirabel was almost as bad as a boy. She was so noisy and sunburned and reckless. But at least she wore dresses. "We've come to go fishing," announced Davy. "Whoop!" yelled the Cottons. They rushed away to dig worms at once, Mirabel leading the van with a tin can. Dora could have sat down and cried. Oh, if only that hateful Frank Bell had never kissed her. Then she could have defied Davy and gone to her beloved Sunday school. They dared not, of course, go fishing on the pond where they'd be seen by people going to church. They had to resort to the brook in the woods behind the cotton house. But it was full of trout, and they had a glorious time that morning. At least the Cottons certainly had. And Davy seemed to have it. Not being entirely bereft of prudence, he had discarded boots and stockings and borrowed Tommy Cotton's overalls. Thus a Cowder bog and marsh and undergrowth had no terrors for him. Dora was frankly and manifestly miserable. She followed the others in their pre-renegations from pool to pool, clasping her Bible and quarterly tightly and thinking with bitterness of soul of her beloved class where she could be sitting that very moment before a teacher she adored. Instead, here she was, roaming the woods with those half-wild Cottons, trying to keep her boots clean and her pretty white dress free from rents and stains. Mirabel had offered the loan of an apron, but Dora had scornfully refused. The trout bit, as they always do on Sundays. In an hour, the transgressors had all the fish they wanted, so they returned to the house, much to Dora's relief. She sat primly on a hen's coop in the yard while the others played an uproarious game of tag. And then they all climbed to the top of the pig house roof and cut their initials on the saddleboard. The flat roof hen house and a pile of straw beneath gave Davy another inspiration. They spent a splendid half hour climbing on the roof and diving off into the straw with whoops and yells. But even unlawful pleasures must come to an end. When the rumble of wheels over the pond bridge told that people were coming home from church, Davy knew they must go. He discarded Tommy's overalls, resumed his own rightful attire, and turned away from his string of trout with a sigh. No use to think of taking them home. Well, hadn't we a splendid time? He demanded defiantly as they went down the hill field. I hadn't, said Dora flatly, and I don't believe you had really either. she added with a flash of insight that was not to be expected of her. I had so, cried Davy, but in the voice of one who doth protest too much. No wonder you hadn't, just sitting there like a mule. I ain't going to associate with the Cottons, said Dora loftily. The Cottons are all right, retorted Davy, and they have far better times than we have. They do just as they please and say just what they like before everybody, and I'm going to do that too after this. There are a lot of things you wouldn't dare say before everybody, averred Dora. No, there isn't. There is too. Would you? Demanded Dora gravely. Would you say tomcat before the minister? This was a staggerer. Davy was not prepared for such a concrete example of the freedom of speech. But one did not have to be consistent with Dora. Of course not, he admitted sulkily. Tomcat isn't a holy word. I wouldn't mention such an animal before a minister at all. But if you had to, protested Dora. I'd call it a Thomas pussy, said Davy. I think gentleman cat would be more polite, reflected Dora. You thinkin', retorted Davy with withering scorn. Davy was not feeling comfortable, though he would have died before he admitted it to Dora. Not that the exhilaration of truant delights had died away. His conscience was beginning to give him salutary twinges. After all, perhaps it would have been better to have gone to Sunday school and church. Miss Lynn might be bossy, but there was always a box of cookies in her kitchen cupboard, and she was not stingy. At this inconvenient moment, Davy remembered that when he had torn his new school pants the week before, Miss Lynn had mended them beautifully and never said a word to Marilla about them. But Davy's cup of iniquity was not yet full. He was to discover that one sin demands another to cover it. They had dinner with Miss Lynn that day, and the first thing she asked Davy was, "Were all your class in Sunday school today?" "Yes'm," said Davy with a gulp. "All were there except one." "Did you say your golden text and catechism?" "Yes'm." "Did you put your collection in?" "Yes'm." "Was Miss Malcolm McPherson in church?" "I don't know." This at least was the truth, thought wretched Davy. "Was the ladies' aid announced for next week?" "Yes'm," quakingly. "Was prayer meeting?" I don't know." "You should know. You should listen more attentively to the announcement. What was Mr. Harvey's text?" Davy took a frantic gulp of water and swallowed it and the last protest of conscience together. He glibly recited an old golden text learned several weeks ago. Fortunately, Miss Lynn now stopped questioning him, but Davy did not enjoy his dinner. He could only eat one helping of pudding. "What's the matter with you?" demanded justly astonished Miss Lynn. "Are you sick?" "No," muttered Davy. "You look pale. You better keep out of the sun this afternoon," admonished Miss Lynn. "Do you know how many lies you told, Miss Lynn?" asked Dora reproachfully as soon as they were alone after dinner. Davy, goaded to desperation, turned fiercely. "I don't know, and I don't care," he said. "You just shut up, Dora Keith." Then poor Davy betook himself to a secluded retreat behind the woodpile to think over the way of transgressors. Green Gables was wrapped in darkness and silence when Anne reached home. She lost no time going to bed, for she was very tired and sleepy. There had been several Avonlea jollifications the preceding week, involving rather late hours. Anne's head was hardly on her pillow before she was half asleep. But just then her door was softly opened and a pleading voice said, "Anne?" Anne sat up drowsily. "Davy, is that you? What is the matter?" A white-clad figure flung itself across the floor and onto the bed. "Anne," sobbed Davy, getting his arms about her neck, "I'm awful glad you're home. I couldn't go to sleep till I told somebody." "Told somebody what?" "How miserable I am." "Why are you how miserable I am." "Why are you miserable, dear?" "'Cause I was so bad today, Anne. Oh, I was awful bad. Badder than I've ever been yet." "What did you do?" "Oh, I'm afraid to tell you. You'll never like me again, Anne. I couldn't say my prayers tonight. I couldn't tell God what I'd done. I was ashamed to have him know." "But he knew anyway, Davy." "That's what Dora said, but I thought perhaps he mightn't have noticed just at the time. Anyway, I'd rather tell you first." "What is it you did?" Out it all came in a rush. I run away from Sunday school and went fishing with the Cottons, and I told ever so many whoppers to Miss Lynn, oh, half a dozen, and I said a swear word, and a pretty near swear word anyhow, and I called God names. There was a silence. Davy didn't know what to make of it. Was Anne so shocked that she would never speak to him again? Anne, what are you going to do to me? He whispered. Nothing, dear. You've been punished already, I think. No, I haven't. Nothing's been done to me. You've been very unhappy ever since you did wrong, haven't you? You bet, said Davy emphatically. That was your conscience punishing you, Davy. What's my conscience? I want to know. It's something in you, Davy, that always tells you when you're doing wrong and makes you unhappy if you persist in doing it. Haven't you noticed that? Yes, but I didn't know what it was. I wish I didn't have it. I'd have lots more fun. Where is my conscience, Anne? I want to know. Is it in my stomach? No, it's in your soul, answered Anne, thankful for the darkness, since gravity must be preserved in serious matters. I suppose I can't get clear of it then, said Davy with a sigh. Are you going to tell Marilla and Miss Lynn on me, Anne? No, dear, I'm not going to tell anyone. You are sorry. You are naughty, aren't you? You bet. And you'll never be bad like that again. No, but, added Davy cautiously, I might be bad some other way. You won't say naughty words or run away on Sundays or tell falsehoods to cover up your sins. No, it doesn't pay, said Davy. Well, Davy, just tell God you're sorry and ask him to forgive you. Have you forgiven me, Anne? Yes, dear. Then, said Davy joyously, I don't care much whether God does or not. Davy! Oh, I'll ask him, said Davy quickly, scrambling off the bed, convinced by Anne's tone that he must have said something dreadful. I don't mind asking him, Anne. Please, God, I'm awful sorry. I behaved bad today, and I'll try to be good on Sundays always, and please forgive me. There now, Anne. Well, now, run off to bed like a good boy. All right. Say, I don't feel miserable anymore. I feel fine. Good night. Good night. Anne slipped down on her pillows with a sigh of relief. Oh, how sleepy she was. In another second, Anne! Davy was back by her bed. Anne dragged her eyes open. What is it now, dear? She asked, trying to keep a note of impatience out of her voice. Anne, have you ever noticed how Mr. Harrison spits? Do you suppose if I practice hard, I can learn to spit just like him? Anne sat up. Davy Keith, she said, go straight to your bed and don't let me catch you out of it again tonight. Go, now. Davy went and stood not upon the order of his going. All right. Chapter 14, the summons. But before we get into that, why don't we do your joy word for this storybook adventure? All right. And your joy word is acceptance. 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 The definition is acknowledging and embracing reality. Acknowledging and embracing reality. The intention of this word here in the Joyful House is find peace by fully accepting yourself and the situations around you. Find peace by fully accepting yourself and the situations around you. All right, that is our joy word for today. Chapter 14, the summons. Anne was sitting with Ruby Gillis in the Gillis garden after the day had crept lingeringly through it and was gone. It had been a warm, smoky summer afternoon. The world was in a splendor of outflowering. The idle valleys were full of hazes. The woodways were pranked with shadows, and the fields with the purple of the asters. Anne had given up a moonlight drive to the White Sands beach that she might spend the evening with Ruby. She had so spent many evenings that summer, although she often wondered what good it did anyone, and sometimes went home deciding that she could not go again. Ruby grew paler as the summer waned. The White Sand School was given up. Her father thought it better that she shouldn't teach till New Year. And the fancy work she loved oftener and oftener fell from hands grown too weary for it. But she was always gay, always hopeful, always chattering and whispering of her beau, and their rivalries and despairs. It was this that made Anne's visits hard for her. What had once been silly or amusing was gruesome now. It was death peering through a willful mask of life. Yet Ruby seemed to cling to her and never let her go until she'd promised to come again soon. Miss Lynn grumbled about Anne's frequent visits and declared she would catch consumption. Even Marilla was dubious. "Every time you go see Ruby, you come home looking tired out," she said. "It's very sad and dreadful," said Anne in a low tone. "Ruby doesn't seem to realize her condition is in the least, and yet I somehow feel she needs help, craves it, and I want to give it to her, and I can't. All the time I'm with her, I feel as if I were watching her struggle with an invisible foe, trying to push it back with such feeble resistance as she has. That is why I come home tired." But tonight Anne did not feel this so keenly. Ruby was strangely quiet. She said not a word about parties and drives and dresses and fellows. She lay in the hammock with her untouched work beside her and a white shawl wrapped around her thin shoulders. Her long yellow braids of hair, how Anne had envied those beautiful braids in old school days, lay on either side of her. She had taken the pins out because they made her head ache. The hectic flush was gone for the time, leaving her pale and childlike. The moon rose in the silvery sky, empearling the clouds around her. Below, the pond shimmered in its hazy radiance, and just beyond the Gillis homestead was the church, with the old graveyard beside it. The moonlight shone on the white stones, bringing them out in clear-cut relief against the dark trees behind. "How strange the graveyard looks by moonlight," said Ruby suddenly. "How ghostly," she shuddered. "And it won't be long now before I'll be lying over there. You and Diana and all the rest will be going on about full of life, and I'll be there in the old graveyard, dead." The surprise of it bewildered Anne. For a few moments she could not speak. "You know it's so, don't you?" said Ruby insistently. "Yes, I know," answered Anne in a low tone. "Dear Ruby, I know." "Everybody knows it," said Ruby bitterly. "I know it. I've known it all summer, though I wouldn't give in. And oh, Anne," she reached out and caught Anne's hand pleadingly, impulsively, "I don't want to die. I'm afraid to die." "Why should you be afraid, Ruby?" asked Anne quietly. Because, oh, I'm not afraid but that I'll go to heaven, Anne. I'm a church member. But it'll be all so different, I think. And I get so frightened and homesick. Heaven must be very beautiful, of course. The Bible says so, but Anne, it won't be what I'm used to. Through Anne's mind drifted an intrusive recollection of a funny story that she'd heard Philippa Gordon tell. The story of some old man who had said very much the same thing about the world to come. It had sounded funny then, she remembered how she and Priscilla had laughed over it. But it did not seem in the least humorous now, coming from Ruby's pale, trembling lips. It was sad, tragic, and true. Heaven could not be what Ruby had been used to. There had been nothing in her gay, frivolous life, her shallow ideals and aspirations, to fit her for that great change, or make the life to come seem to her anything but alien and unreal and undesirable. Anne wondered helplessly what she could say that would help her. Could she say anything? "I think, Ruby," she began hesitantly, for it was difficult for Anne to speak to any one of the deepest thoughts of her heart, or the new ideas that had been vaguely begun to shape themselves in her mind concerning the great mysteries of life here and hereafter, superseding her old childish conceptions, and it was hardest of all to speak of them to such as Ruby Gillis. "I think, perhaps, we have very mistaken ideas about heaven, what it is and what it holds for us. I don't think it can be so very different from life here as most people seem to think. I believe we just go on living a good deal as we live here and be ourselves just the same. Only it will be easier to be good and to follow the highest. All the hindrances and perplexities will be taken away, and we shall see clearly. Don't be afraid, Ruby. I can't help it, said Ruby pitifully. Even if what you say about heaven is true, and you can't be sure, it may be only that imagination of yours. It won't just be the same. It can't be. I want to go on living here. I'm so young, Anne. I haven't had my life. I fought so hard to live, and it isn't any use. I have to die and leave everything I care for. Anne sat in a pain that was almost intolerable. She could not tell comforting falsehoods, and all that Ruby said was so horribly true. She was leaving everything she cared for. She had laid up her treasures on earth only. She had lived solely for the little things of life, the things that pass, forgetting the great things that go onward into eternity, bridging the gulf between the two lives and making of death a mere passage from one dwelling to the other, from twilight to unclouded day. God would take care of her there, Anne believed. She would learn, but now it was no wonder her soul clung in blind helplessness to the only things that she knew and loved. Ruby raised herself on her arm and lifted up her bright, beautiful blue eyes to the moonlit skies. I want to live, she said in a trembling voice. I want to live like other girls. I want to be married, and I want to have little children. You know, I always love babies, Anne. I couldn't say this to anyone but you. I know you understand. And then poor Herb. He loves me, and I love him, Anne. The others meant nothing to me, but he does. And if I could live, I would be his wife and be so happy. Oh, Anne, it's hard. Ruby sank back on her pillows and sobbed convulsively. Anne pressed her hand in an agony of sympathy, silent sympathy, which perhaps helped Ruby more than broken, imperfect words could have done. For presently she grew calmer, and her sobs ceased. I'm glad I told you this, Anne, she whispered. It's helped me just to say it all out. I've wanted to all summer. Every time you came, I wanted to talk it over with you, but I couldn't. It seems as if it would make death so sure if I said I was going to die, or if anyone else said it or hinted it. I wouldn't say it or even think it. In the daytime, when people were around me and everything was cheerful, it wasn't so hard to keep from thinking of it. But in the night, when I couldn't sleep, it's so dreadful. And I couldn't get away from it then. Death just came and stared me in the face until I got so frightened I could have screamed. But you won't be frightened anymore, Ruby, will you? You'll be brave, and I believe that all is going to be well with you. I'll try. I'll think over what you've said and try to believe it. And you'll come up as often as you can, won't you, Anne? Yes, dear. It won't be very long now, Anne. I feel sure of that. And I'd rather have you than anyone else. I always liked you best of all the girls I went to school with. You were never jealous or mean, like some of them were. Poor Em White was up to see me yesterday. You remember Em and I were such chums for 3 years when we went to school, and then we quarreled that time of the school concert. We've never spoken to each other since. Wasn't it silly? Anything like that seems so silly now. But Em and I made up the old quarrel yesterday. She said she'd have spoken years ago, only she thought I wouldn't, and I never spoke to her because I was sure she wouldn't speak to me. Isn't it strange how people misunderstand each other, Anne? Most of the trouble in life comes from misunderstanding, I think, said Anne. I must go now, Ruby. It's getting late, and you shouldn't be out in the damp. You'll come up soon again? Yes, very soon. And if there's anything I can do to help you, I will be so glad. I know. You've helped me already. Nothing seems quite so dreadful now. Good night, Anne. Good night, dear. Anne walked home very slowly in the moonlight. The evening had changed something for her. Life held a different meaning, a deeper purpose. On the surface, it could go on just the same, but the deeps had been stirred. It must not be with her as with poor butterfly Ruby. When she came to the end of one life, it must not be to face the next with the shrinking terror of something wholly different, something for which accustomed thought and ideal and aspiration had unfitted her. The little things of life, sweet and excellent in their place, must not be things lived for. The highest must be sought and followed. The life of heaven must begin here on earth. That good night in the garden was for all time. Anne never saw Ruby in life again. The next night, the AVIS gave a farewell party to Jane Andrews before her departure for the West. And while light feet danced and bright eyes laughed and merry tongues chattered, there came a summons to a soul in Avonlea that night that might not be disregarded or evaded. The next morning, the word went from house to house that Ruby Gillis was dead. She had died in her sleep, painlessly and calmly, and on her face was a smile as if, after all, death had come as a kindly friend to lead her over the threshold instead of the grisly phantom she had dreaded. Miss Rachel Lynde said emphatically after the funeral that Ruby Gillis was the handsomest corpse she had ever laid eyes on. Her loveliness as she lay white-clad among the delicate flowers that Anne had placed about her was remembered and talked of for years in Avonlea. Ruby had always been beautiful, but her beauty had been of the earth, earthy. It had been a certain insolent quality in her, as if it flaunted itself in the beholder's eye. Spirit had never shone through it. Intellect had never refined it, but death had touched it and consecrated it, bringing out delicate modelings and purity of outline never seen before, doing what life and love and great sorrow and deep womanhood joys might have done for Ruby. Anne, looking down through a mist of tears at her old playfellow, thought she saw the face of God. She had saw the face God had meant Ruby to have, and remembered it so always. Miss Gillis called Anne aside in a vacant room before the funeral procession left the house and gave her a small packet. Whew, y'all, this is tough. I want you to have this, she sobbed. Ruby would have liked you to have it. It's the embroidered centerpiece she was working at. It isn't quite finished. The needle is sticking in just where her poor little fingers put it the last time she laid it down, the afternoon before she died. There's always a piece of unfinished work left, said Miss Lynde, with tears in her eyes, but I suppose there's always someone to finish it. How difficult it is to realize that one we have always known can really be dead, said Anne, as she and Diana walked home. Ruby is the first of our schoolmates to go. One by one, sooner or later, all the rest of us must follow. Yes, I suppose so, said Diana uncomfortably. She did not want to talk of that. She would have preferred to have discussed the details of the funeral, the splendid white velvet casket Mr. Gillis had insisted on having for Ruby. The Gillises must always make a splurge, even at funerals, quoted Miss Rachel Lynde. Her, Spencer's sad face, the uncontrolled hysteric grief of one of Ruby's sisters. But Anne could not talk of these things. She seemed wrapped in a reverie in which Diana felt lonesomely that she had neither lot nor part. Ruby Gillis was a great girl to laugh, said Davy suddenly. Will she laugh as much in heaven as she did in Avonlea, Anne? I want to know. Yes, I think she will, said Anne. Oh, Anne, protested Diana with a rather shocked smile. Well, why not, Diana? Asked Anne seriously. Do you think you'll never laugh in heaven? Oh, I don't know, floundered Diana. It doesn't seem just right now, somehow. You know, it's rather dreadful to laugh in church. But heaven won't be like church all the time, said Anne. I hope it ain't, said Davy emphatically. If it is, I don't want to go. Church is awful dull. Anyway, I don't mean to go for ever so long. I mean to live to be 100 years old like Mr. Thomas Blewett of White Sands. He says he lived so long 'cause he always smoked tobacco and it killed all the germs. Can I smoke tobacco pretty soon, Anne? No, Davy, and I hope you'll never use tobacco, said Anne absently. What do you feel like if the germs kill me then? Demanded Davy. Oh, that little fella. All right. Well, thank you for joining me for this storybook adventure. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I look forward to meeting you with you here next Sunday in the Joyful House for our next storybook adventure. But until then, my friends, be joyful, stay crafty in your own way, make your own joyful creations, and be the joy in everything that you do. Nugs and joy. Mwah. Bye.